Hey everyone, and welcome to Rooted, where we are rooted in truth, growing in freedom, and prospering in life.
We're your hosts, Josie and Symone Harms, and we are so excited to have you all on episode 10. So thank you guys for following along throughout these past couple months. We're so excited for this episode. We've had a lot of people asking for an episode with just Symone and I, and so here we have it. We put out an option for you guys to submit different questions, and we're so excited to dive right into them. So Symone, do you want to tell us what our first question is?
Yeah, so I'm so excited. This is just going to be more of a chill episode, and we're going to go through all of your questions, but it's going to be a good time. Our first question that we have is, what inspired you to start a podcast? We had this a couple times. So what inspired you, Jose?
Yeah, it was kind of a lot of different things. It started off with our life verse, which is Psalms 1:3. And that verse was a verse that our parents kind of encouraged to have as our family verse. If you want to learn more about that, you can actually listen to the episode with our mom and dad. And they had that as our life verse. So it's always been something we've always been encouraged to be rooted in truth, growing in freedom, and prospering in life. And so that's always been our family motto. But Symone and I have always wanted to have either a Tonight Show or something. And once we found out we were going to both be at Bethel together, we're like, why don't we start a podcast? That sounds kind of fun. And so we were super excited about the idea. And as we were brainstorming ideas for names, Rooted came to mind just because of that history with our family and our family life motto.
Yeah, I remember we were kind of thinking like a flourish or something, but then it was like a random day. I don't remember who it was, but we're just like, wait, what about Rooted? And somehow we just never turned back after we thought of that.
Yeah, I remember I forgot flourish was like one of our first options. And then we're like,
Yeah.
no, because ultimately it's about the roots before you can actually flourish.
So true. Yeah. And I felt like we had this idea for a long time to start a podcast, like just knowing this is what we love to do together. We love to talk together. We used to perform on stage together. We want to learn from others. If we're going to do a podcast, we want to do something that's like beneficial, right? How can we grow in our life? How can we become better? Because ultimately, like that's the big picture, right? Like we could sit here and talk about all of these shallow things, but I think in the end, what truly matters and what's truly going to be fulfilling is if we're talking about Jesus and if we're talking about things that are going to affect eternity and just using our talents to affect eternity, because ultimately that's what it's all about.
100%. And I think both of us have really just gotten a lot out of people like Sadie Robb and other podcasters, Craig Rochelle, and the amount of value and growth that I've gotten from podcasts has just been huge. And so we definitely thought about it for a while, and ultimately it ended up being about a year or so that we were just thinking about it. And it kind of came down to fear, honestly, because there's a lot of fear surrounding, okay, first of all, the fear of the unknown. I don't know how to make a podcast. I know nothing about recording. And so that's like a fear, but then also you have the fear of failure and the fear of others.
Right.
And, oh, what's like this? No one's going to want to listen to this. And after talking with each other and our parents and some friends and family members that we had kind of told about the podcast, we were like, we can't live by fear. We have to live by faith, and we need to step out. And honestly, I was really encouraged by the amount of family members and friends who they like kept asking us, so when are you going to start this podcast? When are you going to start it? So shout out to all of those people that really encouraged us, because honestly, you guys helped us kind of get over that.
Yeah, I remember at the beginning when we were kind of debating, okay, do we do it now or do we not? I think ultimately for me, I had to stop looking at myself. And like you said, the fear of, yeah, well, what if this is just like cringe, or what if no one watches or no one listens? And it's all about me, me, me. And when I shifted my focus to, okay, this isn't about me. This is me just doing my thing for God. Like the eyes are on God and this is about him. And does he want us to do this? And it felt like the more we were praying about it, the more it's like, yes, he wants us to do this. And the only thing holding us back right now is us, you know?
Exactly.
And so I think just like shifting your perspective on, it's not my job to feed the 5,000. It's my job to provide the fish. It's my job to provide the bread. And it's Jesus's role. And he's going to take that bread and fish and he's going to be like, look what I can do. So just shifting your perspective on that, not about us, about God. And I think that ultimately just helps anyone and helped us get over that fear.
Exactly. Amen. So part of rooted is looking at what we're rooted in, and some of you were really curious about what it was like growing up in a small town because that's a huge part of our roots. So, Simone, do you have any insight on into small town life?
Yes. Okay. I love small town life. I would not change my childhood for anything. We live in the cities now. I love Minneapolis, but small town vibes, just growing up, you could be involved in so many activities
Yes, so
from the
good.
musicals to like I was in the musical, I was in volleyball, I was in knowledgeable National Honor Society, like all the different things that you can be involved in is just such a great opportunity to kind of expand your talents. And also, as you're growing up, you can start to figure out, like, oh, wait, this is actually what I like or this is not what I like. Where if you were like devoted to one sport, then it's like, whoa, what if I would have been good at music or
Mhm.
something, you know? So I feel like that's a really good opportunity. And just the closeness of the community. I had about 60 kids in my graduating class, and I felt we all just became best friends low key. You just become really close with everyone. I feel like there can be some downs to that too, with everyone knowing all your business. But
Exactly.
I think, yeah, ultimately, I loved being in a small town.
And I love how you can go back to that small town and those same people are still there and they still care about your
Yes.
life. Even coming back for when I came back for your graduation and for all of your activities your senior year, running into my old teachers and everything was just so fun because
It is fun.
I really care about them and they genuinely care about me too. And so I think, yeah, that community aspect, which is honestly probably why both of us wanted to come to Bethel because
True.
you really have that community aspect at Bethel for sure.
Yeah. And I would say another thing is you had to get creative. Like
Yes.
there's not a ton to do on the weekends and stuff in a small town. So it's like, hey guys, let's just go hop in our car and cruise around to music or
Yes.
you know what I mean? Or like go walk around a Walmart. Come on.
Or play Fox Hunt.
Oh yeah. Fox
That it
on car
was
hide
one
and
of
seek
our
guys.
favorite games. It's basically
So
car hide
fun.
and seek, so one car goes and hides and other cars have to find them. It is the best game ever. So, yeah, that was definitely a highlight.
Yeah, for sure. Kind of like talking about small towns, we had someone ask about your favorite childhood memory. So what would your favorite childhood memory be?
Oh, that is so hard. I feel like I have so many good memories. I think I'm gonna say 2 because I can't really pick between the 2.
Yeah.
The first one would probably be our parents took us to all 50 states, and that was something that was just huge. Getting to experience so many different cultures and places around the United States, and also getting time to spend time together as a family was just foundational, I feel like, in bringing our family together. And then another big one was definitely camp. So, for those of you that
Yes.
don't know, Simone and I, we grew up living out at camp. Our parents are the program directors at Camp Shetek. And so, for the first 10 years of my life, we lived there year round. And since then, we just go out there for the summers. And it was amazing. Like, as a kid, we basically, our parents were always busy with camp and we just got to run around. It was Simone and Gus and I. Gus was the other
Yes,
camp
Gus
kid.
great.
And us 3 would just run around all day, every day. We had little walkie-talkies to talk to mom and dad in case something happened, but we were pretty much unsupervised and just would run around, play like dragons and superheroes, and it was the best life for sure.
And I feel like that also helped us. We were hanging around all of these older counselors who were seeking
Mhm.
Jesus. And I felt like that was foundational for us. Like as we were growing up, just kind of looking to all these different mentors in our life throughout the summer. I think that was super beneficial for us too.
Exactly, and I think it also helped with that creativity aspect.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
when you're out at camp, you just get to run around, you get to make up things,
Yeah.
and
Imagination.
yeah, and we'd make movies,
Oh, yeah.
skits, all sorts of stuff. So honestly, that probably helped play a piece in this podcast too. But what would you say is your favorite memory?
Yeah. See, I was going to say the 50 states thing and the camp. Um,
Wow, same theme.
right. But just for sake of, a different answer, I would say caroling at Christmas. Our family, ever since we were
Yes.
little, the Harms family, and now we're talking like how many people do we even have in the Harms family?
Well, there's a total of 14 aunts and uncles, and then like
Yeah.
27 grandkids.
Okay, let's just say like 40s. Grandma Judy, you can check this, fact
Yeah,
check
fact
this.
check.
But anyway, big family. And we would all get on a bus on Christmas Adam the night before Christmas Eve. And we would all we would all hop on this like literal school bus and go
Yeah, we would
around
rent out a
town.
school bus.
Yeah. And we'd go around Slayton, around the town and carol. and it was so fun. And our family, like, we're so musical, as in we love singing so much. And so just this big group of harmonizing and these Christmas songs,
Yes.
it was such a core memory, and yeah, love it to this day.
And we'd always bring the granola. Grandma would make homemade granola that we'd give to the
Yes.
people that we caroled to.
Yes.
Oh, that is definitely a core memory.
Such good times.
Definitely.
Christmas is just amazing in general. I just love Christmas time so much.
Okay, so this is not a
No, this
question
is not a
that
question.
they gave,
But
but
I know what you're gonna say.
when can you start listening to Christmas music?
Dude, I was listening to it yesterday. Isn't that terrible?
Yes.
Guys, we are in September right now. It was September 9th. I was listening to it, and some of my roommates were like, "You are not playing Christmas right now." And I was like, I am. I'm sorry. I just can't help it. It makes me so happy.
I know. I feel like there's not an official time to start listening to Christmas music.
There's going to be
I think you can
haters,
listen to it
definitely, I know.
whenever. You can definitely listen to it whenever, but I think when you have to start listening to it is when it snows for the first time.
Yes, that
I'm
is
like,
true.
that's like when I start listening to it. I don't hate on people that start now, but I would say the first snow, I'm definitely listening to Christmas music
Yeah.
because Christmas only lasts so long.
And definitely, I wouldn't encourage you guys to be listening to it in the summer, but like legally, you can listen to Christmas music whenever. So honestly, go for it.
So coming back from that side note about Christmas, some people wanted to know even more about our camp experience. So we talked a little bit about growing up at camp, but camp is more than just when we were camp kids running around. It also became a huge part of each of our stories and testimonies. And I just know I'm so grateful for the time that I got to be a counselor. I got a counsel for 4 years and was in the kitchen a few years. And just the amount of growth that I experienced through that was huge. And the way that other counselors poured into me. And honestly, the camp family is a second family for me.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I haven't been there the past 2 summers, but I just love when I get to hang out with them still. It still feels like we're such a family.
It feels like we never left, even if we've been gone for like a year.
Exactly. Symone, do you want to kind of share about one of your favorite themes that we had at camp?
Oh, that's such a good question. I would say one of the best themes is honestly Waves of Grace. And that was the kind of Hawaiian theme, but it was just this idea of how God's grace is never ending. It's waves and waves and waves of grace. And even when we think, oh, well, I don't deserve this, like Christ didn't die for me, or my sins are just too much, it's just this overflow of grace that he's just going to continue to pour on your life. And just spiritually, I thought that was amazing for camp, but also just the activities and like the games and the songs. I mean, if you know us by now, I'm sure you probably know that we love Hawaii, but I remember we had just been to Hawaii, and then that year at camp, the Hawaiian theme, we had a luau. It was just so hype. But you could speak a little more on the Waves of Grace theme. I feel like that really touched you also throughout your life.
Yeah, I would say Waves of Grace was a huge theme for me. And I actually had the opportunity to live in Hawaii for a month a couple years ago, and that was amazing. That was such a dream come true. And being there honestly revealed to me just how much grace is important because I would go to the ocean and I would hear these waves crashing against the shoreline, one after another after another. And it's just such a peaceful sound. And you just hear them coming over and over and over again. And as you hear them, I started to realize wait a second, even when I'm sleeping, those waves are still crashing. Those waves never stop, even when I'm asleep. And in the same way, even when I'm sleeping, God's still working in my life. And even when I don't see it, I know that just like the waves, he's working and he's moving. And so the ocean has always just been a reminder of that for me. And so getting to really dive into that at camp was huge. So I definitely, the verse that they really highlighted that year was, for from his fullness, we have all received grace upon grace upon grace. And that's just such a good reminder, I think, for all of us. So whenever you see the ocean, that's what I think about. And I'd encourage you to think about that as well.
Yeah, I think that is so cool. And another thing that I just love about Camp Shetek is there's so many people that are like, well, why is camp so fun? You know? Yeah, you have the friends, you have the games, you have the activities. But if you took Jesus out of that, that just like would not be fun at all. It would not be uplifting. It would not be
No,
what
yeah.
like what it is. And I think that's what's so cool about it, is that it is kind of like this little slice of heaven on earth, where like the whole reason why we're there is for a greater purpose. And you have just this community of believers that is pushing you towards Christ over and over. And you're just constantly in his word. You don't have the distractions of the world. You're like in this little bubble where you can only focus your sights on Jesus. There's campers who say, I was so worried and anxious about this and that, and now that I'm here, I'm not even thinking about that. And it literally takes you away from the world physically, but also spiritually and emotionally, I feel. And it just gives you this perspective of what someday heaven might look like, you know, this group of believers that's just always there for each other, uplifting each other, and we're just constantly in worship, and it's just amazing. It's an amazing time. I love camp so much.
I know. And the great thing is that that's not just at Camp Shetek. It's
Right,
at all
yeah.
of the camps. And so I just
So
think
true.
no matter which camp you go to a camp. It's going to be life-changing and definitely impactful, whether you're a counselor or a camper. So
Yeah, and even bring that form of lifestyle out to wherever you are, you know? Like bring that to your friends and bring it to wherever you live, and just like continually submerge yourself with those people and in God's word.
yeah. Okay, here's another question, and I really like it. What's the best life advice you've ever received?
That is such a tough question. I am so indecisive, so I don't have like a super good, this is the best, but I guess I can say a best piece of advice. And something that my dad has said often is, what you focus on will increase. And that's basically just saying, like, if I'm constantly focusing on the negative, then I'm going to be getting negative. You know, my life is going to be negative. If I'm focusing on the positive, what I do have or what has been going good, then it's like, oh, wow, all of a sudden, my day is great. And I feel like we can often get in this mindset of focusing on these negative things or certain people or circumstances, and it just brings us down. And it's like, well, why is this the center of my attention right now? Probably because this is exactly what I'm thinking about. So whatever you want to increase in your life, start focusing on that.
Yes. I love that. And my cross country coach has really been encouraging us to do that lately. Before practice every day, we have to write down 10 things we're grateful for. And the catch is that we can't repeat stuff every day. So the first couple days, it was pretty easy, honestly.
Yeah.
But now that we're in like the second week, it's like I have to think throughout my day and actively think about things like, oh, I'm so grateful for my bubbler today. Like, just like actually cultivating a heart of gratitude where I'm walking through my day and actually have to look for things that I'm
Right.
grateful for.
Yeah.
So that's been something kind of going off that same theme of like, what are you focusing on? That's where your life is going to start heading. So I love that. My answer to that question, best life advice, is I love the live action Cinderella movie. And what I love about it is that she constantly repeats this line, have courage and be kind. And that has become one of my life mottos. And I just love it because I feel like it sums up so much. Because at the end of the day, you want to be kind. Kindness is always more powerful than being right, than attention, success. And so you need to be kind, but at the same time, you need to have courage in order to be kind sometimes. And sometimes you also need to have courage to be able to stand up for yourself too. And so I think it just brings everything beautifully together to have courage and be kind. And I think when you think about decisions through that, it just is very beneficial. So I love Cinderella and I love that line.
Yes, that kind of reminds me of a quote that says, people won't remember what you did or what you said, but how you made them feel. And I feel like that kind of goes with the kindness
so good.
thing. Like, oh, I'm worried about what I'm going to say or what I'm going to do. And it's like, at the end of the day, they're going to think about, how did this person make me feel? We want people to feel like they're welcome and that they're comfortable. And it's not all about us and saying the perfect words and knowing exactly what to say.
Yeah, that's so good.
Someone asked, what is your favorite podcast? So Josie, what's your favorite podcast?
Definitely Rooted. No, I'm just kidding. I do love this one though. It's been actually surprisingly, I've been learning a lot just from the guests myself. But in all honesty, my favorite podcast is I love Sadie Robb's Whoa, That's Good podcast. And I also love Craig Rochelle. he puts all of his sermons. So it's not really a podcast, it's more sermons. His life church is the church, and he puts all of his sermons online, and I listen to that pretty much every week, and he is so good. So between Craig Rochelle and Sadie Robb, those are definitely my go-to listens.
Yeah, those are amazing pastors, amazing speakers. I'm also going to have to say Sadie Robertson. I love Sadie, and I feel like I've learned so much through her podcast. She also like interviews a ton of different people from a ton of different backgrounds, and I just love hearing all the advice, all of the stories. I just feel like I get a lot out of it. So I look forward to listening to those.
Okay, we're going on a little romance route now because we had a lot of questions related to that topic. So, first one is, what is your love language?
Ooh, so you're asking me this?
Yes,
Oh,
that's what someone submitted. What is your love language?
okay. So I would say my top one is definitely quality time. I've taken a quiz, by the way, so this is semi accurate. Quality time would be the top. And then next was physical touch for me. And then it was words of affirmation. But physical
Yeah,
touch and
yours is definitely physical touch.
yeah, those two were like tied at the top. What are yours?
My top one is definitely words of affirmation.
Yup.
I definitely appreciate that. And then quality time is right up there. I'd say they're basically neck and neck, but words of affirmation slightly higher. But yeah, quality time is up there. I love getting to spend quality and quantity time. I
Oh,
think those are two
so
different things,
true.
but I think they're both
You can have a
important.
lot of time with someone and it can not be quality. I would definitely say though, I feel like a lot of people have quality time because who wouldn't want to spend time with
Yeah,
like the
like
person they
if you
like? That's
love
just so dumb.
someone, why would you yeah. But even just for like friendships, like
Right.
if you like I care about you and so I love to spend that's why we're doing this podcast. We like to spend time together.
No, for sure.
Exactly.
Okay, this leads to my next question, or the audience's next question. It says best relationship advice. And something I was actually going to talk about is like the complimenting versus the completion. And Ben Stewart talks a
Yes.
lot about this. And it's like often like there's people out there who are like trying to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. And it's like finding someone who can complete them, right? And that's never going to work. You're never going to find someone to
Mhm.
complete you. And it's all about complimenting you. Like, does this person make you better? Do they bring out the good in you? And do you bring out the good in them? And so not focusing on like, oh, I want this person to fulfill me and make me better because they're never going to fulfill you, right? Like they're going to let you down and that's not going to lead down a good route. So finding someone who can compliment you. What would you
Yeah.
say though? What's your advice?
Well, I'm going to go with the same Ben Stewart theme because I love Ben
We love
Stewart.
Ben.
His book, Single Dating Engaged Married, is so good and just helpful in any season of life. And as a runner, I love his running analogy. He talks about how ultimately we're all on this race towards Jesus and towards eternity with him. And so our job is not to go out and try and find someone, but it's to run towards him.
Mm-hmm.
And as we're running, you know, like just in a race, you'll start running and all of a sudden someone might run up next to you and you might run together for a little bit and then all of a sudden you start running different directions and then that's what happens. You start running in different directions, but one day as you're running, all of a sudden that perfect partner will come running alongside you and you'll realize that hey, we're running in the same direction towards Jesus and at the same pace towards Jesus. And then we can run together towards him for all eternity and we can help each other, push each other, encourage each other as we're running because that's a huge part of endurance training but also a part of our faith. And so I just think that analogy really connected with me and it's such a great example for all of us that we just got to keep running towards Jesus and one day we'll
Yes.
have someone run right next to us.
Boom. So
So,
good.
one question that was submitted, they said, "What is one word to describe your current season of life?" That's a really unique question.
That is a super unique question. I would say the word that I've been thinking about a lot lately is the word freedom. And I was a part of Welcome Week here at Bethel, and the whole theme was like Jubilee and finding freedom and favor in the Lord. And I felt like I really just wanted to kind of take that word freedom to heart and really pray and think about how can I live in freedom throughout my day and throughout my life. And just with like whether it's things that have happened, things of the past, or things that I'm worried about for the future, just constantly thinking about how God has made me free from that, right?
Mhm.
And how I can focus my eyes on Jesus instead of like the situations at hand or the fears at hand or like the fear of what other people think. oh, I'm going into another year and there's going to be some changes. And am I going to let the fear of man affect me and affect my daily living? Whether that's like, who am I going to sit with in the dining hall? Or I don't have all my classes figured out. What am I going to do? Or what does that person think about how I look? And just stop looking at the problem and start looking at the solution. And Jesus is a solution.
Mhm.
And he has said, it is for freedom that I have set you free from that.
That's so good. I love it. Okay, we're going to do one more fun question and then we'll get to the question of the podcast. So, Symone, I guess the question is, what is your favorite thing about each other? So,
Oh,
what's your favorite thing
okay.
about me, I guess?
Yeah, my favorite thing about you. I'm going to have to say your determination. You've always been an extremely determined person, whether it's through running or your business or your career. You're such a determined person. And when you put your mind to something, you do it and you actually do it. You don't just say, like, I'm going to do this. You actually do it and you find a way to do it. So I think that's a really good quality and character trait that I honestly want to be better at.
Wow. Well, thanks, Symone. My favorite thing, I could say a lot of things that I love about you, but I'd probably have to boil it down to your creativity. I think you're always down for just crazy ideas, like having World War II party, like things like that. I'm like, what in the world, Symone? So I just think that you're so fun. You always make sure that the vibe is good and have all of the different little creative pieces put together. And even just your media productions, you've made so many cool movies and everything. So
Oh,
I just love that
thanks.
about you.
Wow, thanks. And then the final question of the whole entire podcast is, what is one thing that you would encourage our audience to be rooted in?
That is such a hard question. Honestly, it's making me realize how hard it is for our guests to answer this question
Right?
because it's hard to think about one thing.
Yeah.
And, obviously Jesus,
Right. And you don't
but
just want to say
if you had to boil it down to like a phrase, I would say he is. I
mm,
always write the words "he is" on my wrist right before cross country races because it reminds me of my favorite verse, Colossians 1:17, which reads, "He is before all things, and in him all things hold together." And it's just such a great reminder of the fact that he's not only before everything, he's also in it, and he's going to lead me through it. And it's also kind of my declaration in, Genesis with Moses. God says, I am. I am. That's all you need to know. And it's my declaration back to him of he is.
that's so
And
good.
no matter what happens, he is.
Yeah.
No matter what I go through, he is. And that's all I need because he is. So that's what I would encourage people to be rooted in.
Wow. I think that is so good. The first thing that came to mind is truth. And I know that that's our whole thing, rooted in truth. But honestly, I can't think of something better. And being rooted in truth is literally Jesus. Like, Jesus is truth, and the truth will set you free. And it is for freedom that you have been set free. It's something that the Lord calls us to and something that he has given us. And so I think truth, ultimately, if you're rooted in truth, like, that's all you need.
Amen. Thank you so much to all of our listeners who submitted questions. We absolutely loved it, and we'll look forward to, if we didn't answer your question, we'll definitely do it on another episode. So
Yeah, this was
thank
so
you
fun.
guys all
Thanks,
for listening
guys.
to this podcast. We can't wait to connect with you all again.
Peace out.